Congressman, President Trump wisely does not remove options from the table. As a political matter, leaving open the possibility there would be a draft to put boots on the ground in Iran seems like, I don't know, going out on a limb.
Like a hard no? Kind of like a pretty easy no?
Like I was a little surprised that the door was left open.
I think this is just a mistake on a TV hit. And that's how I rate it. The current issue before the administration is a funding request on Capitol Hill. They're going to have to struggle through the House and the Senate, and they're going to have a bipartisan vote in both chambers in order to get funding for that. That's going to be the key vote on this war, or however we're defining this conflict with Iran.
I would say, I not to far be it from me to defend Caroline Leavitt, but to the congressman's point. Well, yeah, look, to the congressman's point about making a mistake in a TV hit, it may just be that she had not discussed that with the president, had not discussed it with the team. And when you are the spokesperson out front, you do not get out in front of the president. And that kind of answer is the kind of answer that leaves you enough space to be able to come back later and say, I discussed it with the president, and he said absolutely not. So you'll never really hear me defend Caroline Leavitt, but I will say that was also sort of what I saw in this. The thing that seems much more concerning to me is the things that are coming out of Donald Trump's mouth and coming out of Pete Hegseth's mouth about how this war is being conducted, and the fact that they are not willing to take boots off the ground, off the table. I don't know why we would give them the benefit of the doubt that that's some sort of brilliant attempt at strategy, and not them leaving the option on the table, because we've seen them unable to follow through, or unwilling, I should say, to follow through on any of the strategic statements they've made thus far.
And I think Jonah made a really great point earlier in the program. This idea of the well, no, he does.
It's getting crazy in here. It's getting crazy in here.
You're dead to me. But this idea of the explanations just shifting quite consistently from the president and the Secretary of Defense is leaving Americans with a lot of totally legitimate questions, like, are we going to have a draft? I don't know whether I can trust the words that are coming out of the people in charge. And there isn't sort of the clear, you think of FDR and giving a fireside chat about shared sacrifice. This is why we're here. This is what we're doing. And this is what the effects will be. There hasn't been that because they've sort of been all over the place.
Well, and I mean, Jonah, it does seem, and this is, there was a debate last week that the Defense Department, the Defense Secretary came out and said, well, you're trying to make the president look bad when you cover service members that have passed away. It's tied to the messaging on the broader conflict, because when you're losing Americans, people want to know why, right?
Well, so a couple things about that. First of all, every journalistic organization, since there have been journalistic organizations, reports on casualties of their own people. That's just what you do, right? And one of the things I find really hilarious about some of the the Chesty McBroseph Secretary of Defense press briefing.
Coin that right here, Chesty McBroseph.
He wants to do this thing, to attack the fake news, the liberal media, the lamestream media, and all this kind of stuff. But most of the lamestream media isn't in that room anymore because they've all left. Yeah. And instead, there was a reporter from Lindell TV, the My Pillow Network, who asked a perfectly legitimate question. And a bunch of these people from right-wing outlets are asking perfectly legitimate questions, because at the end of the day, when you go to war and it hasn't been explained to you in advance, you have some legit questions to ask.
And a lot of to another point you made earlier in the program. This is the Jonah Goldberg. Another great point you made in the program. There's a rift on the right over whether to be in the war, and some of that would be picked up on by right-leaning voices. Right. And they're asking questions about how do we feel about the fact that people are dying. They are fair questions to ask.
I should say I agree entirely with Pete Hegseth, and that's another sentence I utter often. It would be crazy to say we're just absolutely ruling out boots on the ground. I mean, politically, I think it's problematic. But as a matter of fact, you want Iran to be scared that there might be an invasion. They're going to deploy resources differently if they actually believe that there's no way we're ever going to put boots on the ground. They get to target harden in a completely different way. And so militarily, I think that makes a lot of sense. The draft stuff is just Japanese game show craziness. Yeah, and besides, Congress has to authorize that anyway.
And I agree with you on the strategic military front. Under an administration where you could trust the words of the president and the Secretary of Defense, and they said we're not going to telegraph our punches to Iran, of course that makes sense from a military and strategic standpoint, of course. The problem comes when you have the administration changing their direction every other day and frankly not being truthful with the American people.
Yeah, I mean, you referenced Pete Hegseth, right? And the way that he's been conducting himself in this instance. I want to flash back to 2016 when he was on Fox, and he was talking about, obviously this was the year that President Trump got elected. It wasn't clear he was going to win that race, obviously, but this was Hegseth back in 2016.
It's typical Trump. All bluster, very little substance. He talks a tough game, but then when pressed on it, he's an armchair tough guy. I hate to say it, but this is a guy who said that John McCain is not a war hero, yet he sought his own 5 military deferments.
So speaking of the draft.
Yeah. I'm nostalgic. I used to be at Fox back in the before times. Yeah. I got nothing.
I think, this is also, Kate, in the context of us seeing dignified transfers, right, of the service members who have been killed. The president met with the families of the 6 of them over the weekend. According to ABC, did witnessing the dignified transfers give him Trump pause? No, not at all, the president said. The parents would be upset if I did that. The parents said to me, every one of them, please, sir, win this war for my boy, in one case a young woman, as you know, please win this for my child. Trump has his own personal history of not having served when many Americans were thrown into harm's way. And now he's in this role.
Yeah, and the fact that we have him showing up to a dignified transfer and wearing a baseball cap, I thought was a really odd decision. Now, he showed up, he spoke to the families, he did what the commander-in-chief is supposed to do, but sending a signal by wearing a baseball cap, I thought was just a really odd and frankly just disrespectful thing to do. And I sort of wonder, I remember there was so much criticism of Joe Biden for looking at his watch during the dignified transfer when those fallen soldiers came home from Afghanistan. Where are the MAGA voices who were so upset about that? Where are they when the president is disrespecting these families in this way? So, look, it is a gut-wrenching, incredibly difficult responsibility of the commander-in-chief to attend these kinds of ceremonies, and it's important that he went, but he should have shown a little more respect, in my opinion, and not worn a baseball cap.
All right.